Hey guys, what's up? Garrett here. Welcome back to another video. In this one, I figured I should get back into some Go videos considering that I actually use Go professionally every day. So in this particular video, we're just going to be getting started, introducing the language, talking about its history a little bit, where it comes from, why it exists, and we'll go for installing it, and then we'll even try and build well, not try, we're actually going to successfully build our first Go program, which, no surprise, when you're learning a new language, one of the most common things is to build like a hello world program, so we're going to do that. All right, so let's talk about the history of Go a little bit. Like, how did it come to be, right? So Go was created by engineers at Google. It was actually created by some really, really big titans in the industry. So before Go was created, most server software was created or written using a language called Java, which I'm sure you're familiar with, as well as another language called C++, which I'm also sure you're familiar with. The problem was that these languages were really kind of developed or created in a time when computers were not multi-processing, right? So what that means, or they not multi-processing, I should say, they did not have multiple processing units on the computer system itself. And so because of that, these languages didn't really offer that much in the way of being able to actually, efficiently and safely, develop software for these types of systems. Now, it's not to say it couldn't be done. It's just that the languages themselves did not offer native solutions in the same way that Go does, which of course we're going to see later on in the Go videos that I make. So the creators of Go, they kind of came up with a few different things, some characteristics of a language that they thought would be important based on where they saw the future of software development going. So these things were first-class support for concurrency and parallel computing, which is something that Go is probably known for, and we're definitely going to get into it later on in some other videos. One of the other things they wanted to focus on was that it should be easy to control resources, to manage these resources in a concurrent system. And there's a lot of headaches that can kind of come when developing concurrent systems, and they're not necessarily specific to Go, so I don't know that we'll be going over them in Go videos, but I definitely do plan on talking about them in later videos because concurrency is everywhere, whether you realize it or not, and they're really, really interesting topics to talk about. Another thing that they wanted to do was have some sort of automatic memory management. Now, a lot of times we refer to this as being a garbage collector, or at least that's the solution that we refer to be able to automatically manage memory. Now, sometimes this isn't what you want, and sometimes it is what you want. In the case of Go and the types of problems that Go was created to solve, it can be a very, very useful thing. That's not to say that that is like the end-all, be-all of approaches to building software. There are plenty of successful languages that don't provide a garbage collector. So something else that they kind of wanted to focus on is that Go should do a lot to help the programmer in their daily job, their daily tasks surrounding programming, right? So things like providing tooling, which we will definitely be talking about, and Go provides excellent tooling built into what you get when you install the language on your computer, right? There aren't there are packages that you can install third party, but you get a lot when you install Go in the way of tooling that is really, really helpful to you as a programmer. Another thing they wanted to do is to automate certain tasks, and an example of this is formatting code, right? And so Go it enforces almost a way of formatting code that you don't necessarily have to worry about as a programmer. I mean, certainly you can if you so choose. I just having working with Go a lot, kind of know what the formatting should be, and so I kind of just do it by habit now. But if I didn't and I hit save, it would automatically be formatted for me, and that's something that we'll talk about as well. But it's really, really helpful to have that there so that you don't have to have some extra plugin, or maybe there isn't necessarily a need for like style guides. Like, these things can get really, really long, a style guide. If you look at a lot of companies publish their style guides for whatever languages they're using, and you can look at these things, they're really, really long. So with Go, companies do have these things, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to have it. You just don't need it, and it's not as important as maybe it might be with some other languages. Yeah, we just talked about that. My bad. Forgot to hit the enter button. All right, so let's talk about the name Go. You've probably also heard it called Golang. The language is called Go, not Golang, but we do call it, Go on forum sites as well. So, for example, on Stack Overflow, when I was first getting started, I definitely referred to it as Golang a couple of times, more than a couple of times, and yeah, I got chewed up for that for sure. So, just like a piece of advice, like a friendly piece of advice, refer to it as Go if you're on some sort of forum website or something like that. But when you're searching sites like Google or I don't know, whatever other site you guys do your searches on, but when you're searching for it, Go is like a really useful term in the English language, right? So you will probably want to refer to it as Golang to be able to find the results that you're looking for when you're just doing general Google searches or Bing searches or I don't know any other search engines that are out there, but just keep that in mind. All right, so let's install Go. Let's give it a shot then, because I actually have version 1.15. So let's go ahead and install this then. And I'm on Mac, so. And also let's open up a terminal. And if I do this, clear, we type Go version, we'll see that, oh, sorry, I'm on 1.16. I thought I was on 1.15, my bad. All right, so let's go ahead and open this up. Previous installation detected. This installer will remove the previous. Very, very helpful that you don't have to worry about versioning stuff all that much. Type in my password there. It will clean this up. Move to trash. Okay, great. Now we can go ahead and we can check this out. And we can run this again, and we get Go 17 right here. You should hopefully have Go 17 or a later version, depending on when you go through this video. But either way, this probably didn't work for you if you ran it before you actually installed Go, and hopefully now it does. So again, link for that page is going to be in the description. But right now, let's go and get ourselves into writing some Go code, which, oh, yeah, let's write some Go code. That was the last slide that I had here. I knew that. Okay, so let's go ahead. As I mentioned before, we are going to just write a simple hello world program in Go. Nothing too crazy there. This is kind of, what typically you'll end up doing first things first when you first start using a language, right? Yes, GitHub. 8. We can create a new folder here, and sorry, let's create a new folder. I'll call it YouTube, and we will open this folder. Okay, so you might have read up on a lot of other things online about things like Go modules and packages and all that stuff. Yeah, that would be the right way to do it, but for the sake of just writing a program, we don't actually need that there. That's more in terms of if you want to have a more robust project, right? You really don't need to use Go modules if you're just going to write like a single file that's going to print the words hello world. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So let's open up our terminal, and we'll say touch main.go, and then we'll say open main.go, and we have it right here. So now let's go and type in also, oops, hopefully this is big enough right here. We're gonna have package main. This is probably, well, it's important. Also, by the way, you can see here, I was talking about formatting and stuff. Note that when I have two lines, it's like two empty lines here like this, and I hit save as I'm doing right now, it removes the line that I don't need, right? And so that's kind of what I was talking about with the formatting stuff, and I'll show a little bit more as we get into this, but for right now, let's do func main, right? And this won't return anything. Note that we don't have to put anything here. And it also, we're not going to take in anything. Pretty sure that's how you do that. I've been using C recently, so. And what we're going to do now is we're going to type in format print line. Actually, let's do printf. Well, Print line is simpler. I'll do both. Let's do print line, and we will say hello world, right? Let's come down here. Let's clear this, and let's type in go run, and then main.go, and we get hello world right there. Super simple, super easy. Really, really small program, but a program nevertheless, right? So now let's break this down. Let's talk about what's actually happening here. We're creating a main package, which every Go program needs. We're importing the format package. Sometimes you'll hear people call it fumped. I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be pronounced, but it looks more like format to me, so that's how I pronounce it. If you want to import multiple packages, you would do so like this, but if there's only one, you can just do so on one single line, just like that. Next, we have a main function, and this is basically the entry point for your program. If you're familiar with something like, I think Java, definitely C, and I think C++, then you probably are familiar with this. If you're not, and you're familiar with something more like JavaScript just kind of starts executing things, so that is a little bit different. It's actually very different. But in Go, we have a main function, and that is the execution point for our program. Next, from the format, or fumped package, if you will, we're going to call the print line, which basically just prints something and then returns a new line, right? And we're just going to pass in this. Now, let's say that we wanted to pass in, something else. Like, let's say we wanted to say here, print, we'll do hello, and then my name, Garrett, right? But let's say we wanted this to be a little dynamic in the way that, we don't necessarily need to know the person's name exactly when we are, going to actually print it out, or when we're going to write this statement, rather. So what we could do is we could say printf, right? And now we can specify a format string for how we want this to work. So for right now, let's just say that we want to print a string, and then this is called a variadic function, which means that it will take in a varying number of arguments. I don't actually know if there's a limit or not, but it'll take in whatever you pass into it. So in this case, we're going to pass in another string called Garrett, right? And this %s stands for, we want it to be formatted as a string. And if we were to run this, we would note that there's nothing actually different that happens, except that we get this little % here. So what we can do then is we can do /n, which is a new line, and that means that we won't get that character right there. So now that we've done that, right? So, but let's say that we wanted to also print a number, right? Let's say like 26, for example, right? Because I'm 26 years old right now. So what we could do then is we might be able to say, let's see, like, I believe it's D for digit, although it might be I. I don't know. Looks like D for digit's correct. I would have been for integer. Yeah, so D for digit. Now, the other thing that we can do here, and by the way, this page here, where do I want to go? Let's go to go print format string. Let's go here. I just want to show you where you can find all of the different options here. So this is inside of the format package here, and you can see that, and by the way, this package go.dev is Go's kind of like package management website, similar if you were to go to the npm website, right, or the yarn website, right? So we can see all here that these are the different, by the way, D was correct, base 10, and we'll play around with this in one sec, right? But this is where you can go to see all the different, down there, yeah, all the different formatting options, right? So let's say that we wanted to print this as a base 2. That would look a little bit different here, right? So let's pass in B instead. And now we get the binary representation, which is base 2 of the number 26, right? So that's kind of cool. Let's go back to D, and I want to show you guys something interesting. There is here somewhere, let's see, right here, this V option. I don't know why they called it V, probably because D was already chosen, but V rather will print the default format for whatever the data type is that you're passing in, right? So let's say that we were passing this in Garrett, which is a string, and we were passing in 26, which is an integer, right? And we know it's an integer. Now, let's say we wanted this to be printed properly, but we didn't know how exactly it should be printed, right? Should it be printed with a D? Well, no, it shouldn't, right? But let's say we didn't know that it was S. What we could do is we could pass in V here, and then likewise, we could pass in V here, and it would simply give us the default, format for the type of the data type that we are passing in, right? So this is pretty useful if you don't necessarily know what the type of the data is and you don't want to spend the time to come here. Or perhaps you come here and you look at this and you're like, I still don't really know what it should be. Well, no worries. You can come here and you can just use the %v, which, as I mentioned before, I've been learning C recently, and to the best of my knowledge, this does not exist. This default type format does not exist in when you're printing things in C, so that's annoying. But in Go, it does. So nevertheless, we can do that, right? So this was a super simple video on getting started with Go, installing it, writing a simple program that really just prints a hello world to, in this case, standard output. You can print it wherever you want, but in this case, standard out, right? So I hope you liked the video. If you did, definitely subscribe and give me a like down below and comment and tell me, if you've been trying to learn Go, if anything is confusing to you, I'll definitely try and kind of focus on that in a later video. But nevertheless, we're going to be going into the basics of Go and how you use it to develop things, and then we'll even talk about actually developing specific things, like full-on tutorials of developing things in Go. I think we're going to have a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to get started. So hope you guys are too, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.